Hello BookTube, my name is Kate and this is my channel, Chapter Kate. It all happened so fast. I don't know how I did it. I bought so many books. So many books. So before I get started with this book haul video, which is my first one, so I'm kind of excited about it, there's a couple of things that I should explain to you. I am a very impulsive buyer. I really shouldn't be, but I am. Something about me that is pretty, I pretty much let anyone know because I'm very open about it, is I have bipolar disorder, and when I am in the sort of up state of that, I have a very typical symptom of I spend a lot of money. The worst purchase I think I ever made was like a $400 straightener when I was in that sort of mindset. And this month has kind of been a really mixed sort of situation. So I ended up buying a ton of books on a couple of different occasions. So this is the result of that. And being manic is very fun. But it can sometimes have some consequences like a empty bank account or overdraft fees, which I have faced this month. So not to glorify what I did, but to, enjoy what I have now, I'm going to talk about it a little bit in this video. First, I'm going to talk about some of the classics that I purchased this month. The first is the H.P. Lovecraft, oh my god, Tales of Horror. I got this, I've been wanting it for a while, but I saw it and it had this shiny, reflective on it. See that? And I love octopuses, so I bought it because it's shiny and it has an octopus on it. Thought it would be a good time. You know how Barnes & Noble has a lot of different versions of classics a lot of times, so if I want one, I'll kind of wait until I see one that's I really like the cover, and then I'll buy it then, since it's one that's always going to be in the store at some point or another. So that one, it's various stories inside one book. So the second one is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Am I saying that right? Charlotte Bronte. Maybe. I don't remember. But, yeah, this is another situation where I've been wanting one for a while, and I was waiting till the classic came out in a cover style that I enjoyed. So, it's actually a really nice kind of faux leather situation. It has this really pretty detail on the inside. But it's, like, really soft and very light considering how thick it is. So, it's got a nice built-in bookmark. Everyone loves those. Or hates them. Next, I bought Alice in Wonderland. Again, this is another situation. It has a built-in bookmark, and I've been kind of waiting for a version of this that I really liked, because the last one was very pink, and I'm not a big fan of pink. This one's got pink on it, but it's mainly purple, so I got this, and it's also got Through the Looking Glass in here as well. I have several copies of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, but I consider myself a collector because I don't want to say hoarder. We'll go with enthusiast. I'm pretty enthusiastic. Next, I'm going to talk about 3 things that are all related to Alexander Hamilton. If you've seen the musical or listened to the musical, it's pretty great. I'm obsessed with it. Know every word. I also just really like rap, so I like to memorize like complicated rap, so it's really fun. And I love David Diggs, so if you haven't listened to Clipping, which is his experimental hip-hop group, you should totally check them out as well. Back to Hamilton. I bought this tiny little book, Hamilton Wits and Wisdom. Wit and Wisdom. It's like little things that he's written, little pieces of, see how tiny it is next to my giant head? It's like little pieces of wisdom that he's written that are, just interesting, and they're kind of divided into sections like concerning humanity, concerning government, things like that. It's really cool. So, whoop. And I have several Hamilton related books, both accurate and non. So, I just had to add to that. And then I purchased these two, Alex and Eliza, and Love and War. These are both by, Melissa de la Cruz. They're historical fictions, and they're kind of about the romance between Alex and Eliza. Alexander and Eliza. They're really beautiful covers. See them? I saw somebody talking about them and that had read them at some point, and I figured I would check them out for myself because I usually don't like romance stories, but if it's about someone who's interesting to me, then I'll totally try it out. The next 3 books, I'm not entirely sure how to classify them, so they're kind of, I just clumped them together. This is The Poet X. It's by Elizabeth Acevedo. I talked about it a little bit in my summer TBR video. I've read it already. It's really good. It's a really quick read because it's written in verse. She is a young Dominican girl who becomes passionate about writing poetry. She tries out slam poetry and finds that it's an amazing way to kind of, get her emotions out. And it actually has a really great ending. Not all books do, but I think it's nice to have a good ending here and there, one that actually gives you closure, and this one definitely does. The next is Smoke and Mirrors by Neil Gaiman. You see that? Okay. I have quite a few books by Neil Gaiman. I really, really love him as an author. And I actually started listening to this as an audiobook because it came up on YouTube and I just clicked on it. Even in the intro, there's a story here kind of hid in the intro, and it's amazing, and I got kind of emotional during the first story, which I don't really do when I read often, but it's actually really interesting and humorous so far, and I like it a lot. In this book, there's a lot of stories that kind of have unexpected, either just the story itself is unexpected or the ending is very unexpected, and I think that's kind of the whole point of calling it Smoke and Mirrors, but it's just a collection of short stories. Then I have Beyond a Darkened Shore. It is by Jessica, I think it's pronounced Leake. She was actually signing books at Barnes & Noble today, and when I went, and I missed her. I didn't even know that was happening, and I missed it. But I heard someone talk about this book before, and I thought maybe I would try it out. But she's from my state, South Carolina, and she actually worked as a psychotherapist for a long time, so I feel kind of connected with her because I work in mental health as well. I'm not sure how to classify this. I know it takes place in Ireland. I know there's some business with prophetic visions, and there's actually, just skimming through, there's a couple of mentions of various Norse mythological beings, so I'm not really sure if it's fantasy or historical fiction yet, but I'm really, really interested in it, and plus it's got the, stereotypical either crow or raven, I'm not really sure which one it is, on the cover that everyone loves these days. So next I'm going to talk about a couple of fantasy books that I bought recently. This one's called An Unkindness of Magicians. It is by, let's see, Cat Howard. And I'm not entirely sure what it's about. This is one of the ones, sometimes it's kind of hard to see with this glare. There we go. Doo-doo-doo. Sometimes I'll buy a book just because the premise, just based on the title or based on the short description, are fascinating to me, even if I don't entirely understand what it's about. So I'm just going to try it out. I like kind of going into books blind occasionally and not knowing what to expect. But I'm really fascinated by this, and plus after reading Nod by Adrian Barnes, he talked about various names of bird groupings, and how our forefathers must have had like a beef with birds, basically, because there are a lot of negative names. So An Unkindness of Ravens, I think it was. And so that kind of drew my eye when I saw this, An Unkindness of Magicians. So, plus it has a quote by Neil Gaiman praising the book on it, and I love him, so I say so a lot. So the next one is Shadow and Bone. This one is by Leigh Bardugo, and I believe that a couple of people have talked about this, and it has I think it's the first of a trilogy. Yeah, Shadow and Bone trilogy. It looked fascinating. I'm not entirely sure what it's about. It looks like it's about an orphan, and I kind of enjoy that trope for some reason. I just really enjoy that. And I heard a couple of really positive reviews about it, so I'm really interested. But the summaries, vague as they usually are, but it seems like there's, that popular, comfortable trope of, finding out you have magic and kind of going into a world that's new to you. Next is The Queens of Innis, I think that's how you pronounce it, and it is by Tessa Gratton. I read the summary of this one, and I found it was kind of interesting because I had the whole Three Sisters situation, which has been kind of popular recently with, I think, Royal and Three Dark Crowns, I think. And they're all kind of fighting, I believe, for the throne from what I've sort of gathered. And it has this entire world, and I love kind of the New World situation and kind of going to a place that's not this world. So fantasy always likes to take us there. Next, I have a Conjuring of Light. I read the second of the series, A Gathering of Shadows, last week. this past week. And it's been a while since I've read a series and like immediately needed to go to the next book. So I read it and it was just so amazing. It was so much better than the first one. The first one was good, but the second one was amazing. So I went ahead and bought this, even though I kind of don't usually read series like one after the other. I've kind of been scatter reading, I guess. But I went ahead and bought it because I'm kind of hooked. The next section of books is going to be science fiction, I believe. And when I kind of group my books, I group them based on what I sort of perceive them to be, but occasionally people may disagree and they might say, well, that's more fantasy or that's more sci-fi, but we sort of group our books how we sort of feel that they belong with our other books. The next one is Welcome to the Night Vale, or just Night Vale, my bad. I haven't actually listened to this podcast, but I've seen a lot of quotes from the podcast, and I've talked to a lot of people who are interested in the podcast, so I thought it would be interesting. It just looked really quirky, and I was kind of curious about it. Haven't even dived into this yet. I know it's about a town, and where a lot of weird stuff happens, but I don't know a lot of specific details about it yet. I've tried to gather a little bit just from the synopsis, but again, it just seems like there's a lot of just weird stuff that goes on in this town. Next is Thunderhead, and it is the second in the Scythe trilogy. The first one is called Scythe by Neal Shusterman, and this book had me shook. I loved it. It had a lot of interesting, it's dense. It has a lot in it that is just meaningful and symbolic, and the Thunderhead, which is kind of like the cloud, but not at all. But it's supposed to be basically like if the cloud kind of became sentient, and that's kind of the deity, or he doesn't really consider himself a deity, but it became like the being that everyone sort of looked to for guidance. But this is an amazing series. If you haven't read the first one, you really need to read that. I don't want to say any more about this one, unless just in case you haven't read the first one, but you really need to. I may be doing a review of this sometime. If anyone's interested, I might. I don't know. Next is Only Human. This is in the Themis Files. I think it's just going to be a trilogy. The first one is called Waking Gods. The second one is Sleeping Giants. And it is by Sylvain Neuvel. I'm not really sure if I pronounced that correctly, but I really, really love this series. It's an amazing series. In this series, they find all these pieces of robots scattered around the world, and they put them all together to form this giant robot that is obviously not technology from this world, and they're kind of talking about a lot to do with extraterrestrial life, and it's very interesting. It's written not as a narrative so much as it's written with interviews and news reports and diary entries, things like that, kind of like World War Z is written. It's very, very interesting, and I love the way it's written. The second one just it hurt me, so I'm kind of scared to read this one. And I actually have the first two in paperback, and I was gonna wait for this one to come out in paperback, but I couldn't wait. And then I looked at it and I was like, I'll just wait. And then I looked under the book jacket and I saw that it has like this amazing, sorry about the glare, print going on here. So I'm probably just gonna have to buy the other two in hardback because it's just beautiful. Next is the Illuminate Files, and they are by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I bought all three of these on a whim because I heard that they were written similar to the Themis Files trilogy. So I have Illuminate. I just started reading this. I don't know much about it. I know that there's a disaster that happens, and it also has a lot to do with extraterrestrial life and things like that. But it's written in interviews and things like that. It's very like the visual, it changes a lot. So like a normal book, it kind of flows because you have that consistent image of just page with words. And since this one switches up so much, it can kind of jar you a little bit when you're reading, so it doesn't flow. But it's very fascinating. It kind of gives you that feel that you're just poring over a pile of files. But that has Illuminate, Gemina, and Acevedo. The last two in my book haul, we're finally there, are more biographical selections. The first one is The Bassoon King. Oh no, there's still a sticker on there. It's one of those Goods, Barnes & Noble stickers that you can just kind of get the thing off and it ripped. This usually comes off much smoother. I thought it would be more satisfying, but it doesn't leave residue. So this is the Bassoon King by Rainn Wilson, and it has with a foreword by Dwight Schrute in it, which is amusing to me. I'm really excited. I don't read a lot of biographies, but when I do, it just has to be about someone that I enjoy. So I'll definitely be reading this one. And my last book is actually, I don't know how to describe it. It is Kurt Cobain's collection of his occasionals. So it looks like a Mead notebook. And it just has basically his journals in here, and occasionally it has drawings and stuff. And it feels weird to kind of read someone's journal, but I love Nirvana, and so I thought I might try it out. And since I work with mental health, again, certain people kind of interest me more. If you feel icky about reading a journal, the first line of this is, "Don't read my diary when I'm gone." But then it says, "Okay, I'm going to work now. When you wake up in the morning, please read my diary. Look through my things and figure me out." So it's kind of a mixed message, but I've been kind of looking at it, and it's actually really fascinating because I do love their music a lot, and I love the personality that comes from the music, even if it is a little bit disturbing. And that is all for my book haul today. I still feel a little shamed that I spent so much money on books, because it is not a responsible way to spend my money. It really is not. Just not. So comment below with your latest impulse buy when it comes to a book. Tell me a book that you just saw and you just had to get it for some reason or another. And if you'd like more of this junk, click subscribe. Bye!